This
and
conference will now be recorded.
I've been working on many different types of integrations like HL7, CCDs, X12, and various other types. But this training would mainly focus on integrating different applications, or rather than I would say different databases between two different healthcare applications or hospitals and labs, or two different hospitals altogether, specifically through the HL7 messaging system and also using some free integration tools like Mirth. Okay, and
Okay.
this would be so we'll have session for 1 hour a day,
Okay.
and we'll start from basics. First, we'll go through HL7. First half of the entire course will be running through HL7, and then second half would go through introduction to Mirth, how Mirth works, and how integrations work, um,
Okay.
and also through and we'll have few working sessions by building few channels on Mirth,
Okay.
so that you can have some real-time exposure of how integrations are done using different databases and
Okay.
how transformations are done on Mirth, and all of these things. We'll go through all of this. This is a
Okay.
course summary. I hope you have
Okay.
gone through the
Yeah. Yeah.
course content.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, great. So, in today's session, let me start sharing my screen.
Okay.
So, in case if you have any questions, Wally and Kumara, you can stop me at any point,
Oh,
and then uh, we'll discuss that and we'll proceed further.
okay. Okay. Fine.
Let me know once you guys can see my screen, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, you can
Oh,
able to
okay.
see.
Yeah, all right. So, from today's session, by the end of today's session, we'll go through the basics of hospital workflow and where do you hear this term HL7 and all. We'll go through some introduction on that and what is HL7, why do we have the name HL7, how the name HL7 has come, and what is an interface and what are the role of HL7 in interfaces and what is interoperability and basic structure of HL7. So Kumaraswamy, I just want to know, you're from which place?
I'm from Hyderabad.
You're from Hyderabad only. Okay. All right, no problem. So so you never worked before? Is this your,
Yeah. 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 Actually, I work. I just know the minimum basics right now, but I don't know completely.
the reason why I'm asking is if you had any healthcare IT exposure before.
No. 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 I am a
No.
fresher.
Okay. Okay. All right, no problem. Where do we hear this term HL7 is all about in the hospital industry. So basically, if there is any if we want to transfer any data in a hospital network, or specifically, I would say if you want to transfer data between two different systems, uh, and those two systems are existing between a laboratory and a hospital or two different hospitals altogether. Basically, the patient related data will be transferred in the form of HL7. So, what is HL7? HL7 is nothing but a type of encoded language which is used in order to transfer data related to patients. So we will go through the basics of why HL7 is used and how did that come into picture. But before that, even before getting into understanding HL7, we need to know how a hospital industry works, with specific to patients and what is the workflow of the hospitals. So understanding that plays a key role because whatever we are learning down the line, it all maps down or comes down back to what happens in the hospital workflow. So it is important for us to understand the basic framework of how hospital works, uh, specifically with patient, doctor, and labs. So when we understand the workflow between these three components, it will be easy for us to map back on what we are learning in the future. So whatever we learn, we again come back during the entire course. Most of the times we come back and relate it to the hospital workflow, so that you people can understand how real-time scenarios, how real-time triggers work for integrations and all. So we'll quickly go through the hospital workflow. So what happens in a hospital here or anywhere, basically patient walks in and first meets the receptionist desk, uh, and meets the front desk manager or receptionist and says that I am here to meet a doctor. And then the patient and then the receptionist will go ahead and ask the patient whether it is the first time that you are coming or have you been there before and all. And based on that, they will take all of your details, whether uh, your name, date of birth, gender, whether you have an insurance with the patient, or or some other basic details. So these details which are pertaining to your registration of your record are called as demographics. Okay, so and once your data is collected on where you're coming from, what are you, where your address details, your insurances, and all. So basically, once your demographics is collected, your record is saved into into their system. Okay, and then the second thing would be to ask the patient whether they had an appointment before. Sorry, whether to for which doctor they need an appointment for. So the patient would say whether it is for ortho or cardio or whatever it is, whatever specific doctor they want to meet for. They will specify the name and see whether the appointment is available or not. If not, when is the next appointment available? All of these details will be checked. If an appointment is available, receptionist will go ahead and schedule an appointment. Now, after scheduling an appointment, then the patient will go meet the doctor. And when after meeting the doctor, doctor will go ahead and diagnose the patient and see if there are any, in order to diagnose further and conclude on a problem that the patient is having, doctor will go ahead and schedule or place few orders. Like when I say order, it's nothing but a laboratory order where we might have to get our blood examined or we might have to get our urine culture examined or X-ray or something of that sort, which would relate of further analysis of your of patient's particular condition. So they will place an order and the order will be sent to the laboratory. And from laboratory, we get the results back and we take those results and we go ahead and present them to the doctor and doctor will diagnose us and they will let us know what is the problem. And once problem is determined, which is nothing but once a diagnosis is done, then doctor will go ahead and give few medications. Patient will take those medications and then we'll again go back to the receptionist desk and pay the fees, or basically pay the fees and they will leave. Okay. So this is the regular workflow that we go ahead and look at. So how is it different and how HL7 comes into picture here? We will go ahead and see that in next slide. But this is the general hospital workflow. Okay. So there are a couple of main things that we need to understand here. In order to capture the data in the front end with the receptionist, as we have seen here, as soon as the patient visits the hospital, he will talk to the receptionist, and receptionist would capture some data like demographics, right? So in order to capture the data, there needs to be an application. So that application, which is used by the front desk, is called as a PM application. When I say PM, in the sense practice management. So basically, that would be an application which is used to use go ahead and manage the entire hospital, like to enter the patient related data and to schedule appointments for different various patients, and to also schedule appointments for various doctors. So that application will help the receptionist to manage the entire practice. Not only receptionists but also administrators use it in order to manage it, and entire billing, like appointment related bill, or once if there is any lab related bill or any sort of billing information will also reside in the PM system, where they would go ahead and enter who is paying how much we are getting from insurance, and all of this information is stored in the PM system, which is nothing but the practice management system. And once the patient visits the doctor's desk, there would be another application there, which is called as EHR system, which is nothing but electronic health record. Okay, when I say electronic, as the name itself indicates, it's a system which will store all of your health records in the form of electronic, which is nothing but they don't maintain paper. So this is different from the PM system because electronic health record will store clinical related information of the patient. PM system doesn't have any clinical related information regarding the patient, but whereas EHR will have um, what is how many number of visits you had. So number of visits is also present in the PM system, but in the EHR you will have what are the lab orders placed, what diagnosis has been done, your discharge summary. In case if you are inpatient, your discharge summary, and if you're on outpatient, what has been tracked and what medication has been given to you. All of these things will be registered or will be stored in the EHR system.
ఎవరు ఫోన్ మాట్లాడారు?
Sorry.
No, no, nothing, nothing.
All right. So, so that is how a typical hospital workflow goes on, and all of this is done in the form of electronic, which means here, I mean, in a few places we see that we carry files of patients, files related to patients here and there. But in most of the US hospitals, it's like you go and you get your data captured by the receptionist, and data will flow from PM system to EHR system, and from EHR to lab. All of this is done, all of this flows through electronic, and there is no hard copies sent given to the patient, or basically mostly the entire data is flown electronically between these systems.
Yeah, Dixon, I have a small doubt here.
Yeah.
What is the difference between AMR and EHR?
EMR is electronic medical record and EHR is electronic health record. So both work pretty much same, but EMR will not have the capability of integration with labs. When I say
Okay. Yeah.
integration with labs, they don't go ahead and have the option to send the data to labs electronically or receive data from labs electronically. You can say that EHRs are upgraded versions where they have the capability of interoperability, integrating with different labs or different PM systems. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, any other questions? Are we clear with the workflow? Because this workflow acts as blueprint for the rest of the training because we will map back so many things down the line back to the hospital workflow.
Yeah. It is clear.
Okay. All right, great. Wally, any questions?
No, no,
Okay.
no question for now.
Okay, great. So, so next, most of the times, whenever I keep learning, I keep questioning on why something has come up. So that is how I learn why, and I put up two questions to myself, and those are why and how. So why would determine try to will try to determine the reason behind something. If you are learning on that specific topic, the reason will be known, and how will help us to understand how that specific technology is built so that we get to know and we learn to know how that particular thing is done. So when we talk about HL7, we need to understand why HL7 has come into picture. Okay, so basically, let's imagine as we discussed, we have practice management system, we have electronic health record, and we have lab information system. So before we jump into understanding the integration between all these things, three things, we'll just quickly look at an example. Okay. So we have three different people from three different countries like China, India, and USA. USA's native language is English, and China's native language is Chinese, and Indian native language is Hindi. If these three people have to communicate with each other, and supposedly all these three people do not know the language, uh, do not know a common language that they are understanding with each other, and the communication becomes very difficult to understand each other. In case if there is one common language between these three people, like English, then all three people can communicate with same language, English, because all of the three people are understanding, and that would be the common language for all three of them. And the communication becomes flawless, and it will be very easy for all three of them. And that is how a standard is emerged. So, say for example, the Indian guy knows English, the Chinese guy knows English, and USA guy knows English automatically. So three different people are knowing it. Three different people are able to communicate through English and understand it. So there wouldn't need to be any translation done, and communication becomes easy. And this becomes a standard. Okay. In the same way, when applications interact with each other, each application will have some native structure of their own database. Okay. Practice management's database architecture is different, and electronic health record database architecture is different. And if there is something other than PM in EHR, which commonly integrates or flows in through the hospital workflow is lab, and the data which is stored in the lab is totally different. So what happens whenever there is a patient in the practice, they first go to the patient's receptionist desk and get their data captured. Once the data is captured, the data is stored in a database. As soon as this data is stored in the database, the data has to flow from the PM system to EHR system because it doesn't make any sense for the doctor to go ahead and enter it again, right? So what is done is there has to be some sort of communication methodology between PM and EHR or lab, which will help us to send the data from PM system to EHR system. Okay, that is where integrations and interfaces will come into picture, which we'll go ahead and see down the line after one or two sessions, and what is an interface and all. But for now, just understand that there needs to be some sort of bridge which has to transfer data from PM system to EHR system. And how this data transfer has to happen. The data architecture of practice management is totally different. Data architecture of EHR is totally different, and if PM has to send the data related to patient, PM has to completely understand the database architecture of electronic health record. So if we relate back to the example that we discussed, if a guy from US has to communicate with Indian guy, say for example, there is no standard at all, and if he has to communicate with an Indian guy, he has to learn the Indian language, and vice versa. Indian has to learn the English language completely to go ahead and communicate with each other. To avoid this, learning of external factors like learning an entire new language again. And if this Indian guy wants to communicate back to the Chinese guy, he has to learn Chinese as well, not only English. So we are ending up in learning or understanding many different uh, share partners in this as per this example. In the same way, if the practice management has to integrate with an electronic health record to go ahead and insert the patient related data into electronic health record, the practice management has to understand the entire architecture of electronic health record. And same applies with the lab. So whoever is sending the data from PM has to understand the database architecture of EHR, the database architecture of lab, etc. Or in case if there is any other integrating system on the other side, they have to understand that as well. So it becomes very hectic. I mean, understanding architectures and then writing a program to integrate with any other system becomes very difficult. So there has emerged a common system, which is a common language, which will be used, which emerged as a standard and which can be used so that they don't need to understand the database architecture of the other side altogether. Because electronic health record understands that language, lab understands that language, and practice management just needs to encode the data into that specific language. So there came the need of having a common language which has to be there in order for the data to transfer between these three systems. So that solution was HL7. So this was the common language where practice management will has to know HL7, lab has to know HL7, and electronic health has to know HL7. So when each of these components in this hospital workflow know this or understand HL7, they don't need to understand any other thing. Like now PM doesn't need to understand the database architecture of EHR. Reason being, PM can just generate the data and convert it into HL7, and EHR understands HL7 basically. So EHR will take the data and will insert it into the database. So there wouldn't raise a need of understanding the architectures of the database of different applications altogether. So HL7 has become the common language in the hospital industry to exchange the data between different systems. It could be from PM to PM, PM to EHR, EHR to PM. Possibilities are many. PM to lab, lab to PM, lab to EHR, and EHR to lab, and so many other things. Whatever the translation, whatever the transfer uh, that happens through these three components within the hospital workflow, they happen through HL7 only. And there are so so the major parties who play in this hospital workflow are hospitals, which are nothing but providers, and the patients. So far we have seen the role of these two people. So there are other things also which play a role in the hospital workflow, who are nothing but payers and also pharmacies. Okay. So payers are nothing but the people, the insurance companies who will go ahead and pay for the claims generated by the hospitals on behalf of patients. And we also have another party which is called as a pharmacy, which is nothing but which will provide medical supplies to patients or hospitals, etc. So when they want to integrate with these two different parties, that would be a different integration altogether. When we talk about integration with or sending the data from PM system, billing information from PM system to an insurance company, we transact that in the form of X12. That is a different standard altogether. Same like HL7, that is a different standard. So there we don't use HL7. And when we talk about integrating with pharmacies, we use e-prescriptions, which are nothing but electronic prescriptions, and they are in different language altogether. HL7 is used only for the communication between PM to EHR, EHR to PM, and then any integrations with labs. So any questions here so far?
No, no, it is clear.
Okay, so this is uh, a depiction of what we have just discussed. So when patient visits the practice management, data is imported into a database, and here we see that it's an SQL database. And on the other side, we have the electronic health record, and data is imported into the database when patient information like his diagnosis or what problems he are facing are entered, and that's a flat file system. So these are two different databases altogether which do not understand each other. All that the practice management needs to do is convert the data into HL7 and send it to EHR. EHR, as EHR also knows HL7, which is the common language, EHR will go ahead and consume that data and will store that in their database. How will it consume? How will it understand? We will go ahead and look at that down the line. So what is HL7? It's nothing but an international level standard. The abbreviated form is HL7. The full form is Health Level 7. So it's a standard that has been established in 1987. So it is mainly used by healthcare systems to communicate with each other between different healthcare related systems. And one of the main reason why we have HL7, the name HL7, it is because of the OSI model, which we'll look at in a couple of minutes, how the name has come, why the name has come. But it is being used in many countries, many well-developed countries. Even we use that in India, USA, Australia, Dubai, uh, England, UK, and there are many. In fact, there are many countries who are using this HL7 as a standard in order to transfer data between hospital systems. Here is an example of the countries that are using it. So why the name next? We have seen what is HL7. Now we'll see why the name HL7 has come. So Kumar Swami, any idea about OSI
Yeah,
layers?
yeah, yeah.
Right. So main operation of HL7 will be done at the application level. which is the seventh layer of Versailles model, which is why the name has given us health level 7. 7 indicates the layer number, which is nothing but the application layer. So this is why the name has come as HL7. Okay. So HL7 is a no is a completely evolved language. So as like any other language, it has its own grammar and it has its own syntaxes. So there are many versions of HL7. When it started in 1987, it came up with version 1, and in 1996, I guess, it came up with they have come up with their second version, and from there on, version 2 has become a standard. And even in version 2, there are subversions like 2.3, 2.5, 2.7. Vastly used in industry right now is 2.3 and 2.5 and 2.7 as well. But the main difference between these three versions is nothing but addition of few fields or addition of few additional components in HL7. So once we discuss about HL7 structure, you understand what those fields and components are. But basically, there is an enhancement to the existing data types, existing message types, and all. So there are more than 50 data types in HL7 language. To be precise, there are 86 right now in 2.7, and then there are more than 80 different message types and more than 86 event types. So what are message types and event types? We will look at that once we get deeper into HL7 structure. So history of HL7, FHIR is the latest version of HL7. I wouldn't say it is the version of HL7, but FHIR is nothing but fast health interoperability system or integrations, where which is used mainly for the integrations in the form of REST services. Like mostly it is used in mobile integrations or tablet integrations and all. Okay, this is the new standard which has been laid down by HL7 somewhere around in 2015. Oh, sorry, 2015-16 during this time period. So this is in the form of XML or JSON. So this is not in the form of HL7. And before that, we had version 3 released in June 2015. But version 3 is not very well accepted by the industry. So you will find very few hospitals or practices which are using version 3 as their standard. Out of 100%, you might just see 5 or 7 or 10% hospitals which are using version 3 as a standard. And it is not widely accepted by the industry only for the reason that it is little complicated to understand than what we had before. And that is one of the primary reason. And second reason is people are habituated, and most of the people support HL7 version 2 rather than 3, which is a different notation altogether. So industry is still using 2.3, 2.5, and 2.7. So this is the history of what emerged when. So back in 97, they started 2.3, and then the benchmarks are usage of 2.3 and 2.5. 97 they started 2.3, and 2003 they started 2.5, which played major role in the industry. So as we have seen, let's quickly look at a couple of advantages of using HL7. So HL7 will help us to share medical data, demographics, and billing related information uh, via the HL7 enabled applications. Data transfer is in the form of messages or triggers. So whenever there is patient related data being captured in the PM system, that will be transferred to the EHR application in the form of HL7 and vice versa. So we do not need any special tools for creating messages. We just need an integration tool, which we'll look at. So code is in ASCII form, which is nothing but you can, if you understand the structure of HL7, you can look at it and read it and understand it. What is the where you have what is the patient related information, what is insurance related information, all that can be understood through your human eye. It is not like an encrypted data. So it is independent. It can work on any operating system. You don't need to have specifics regarding the OS. Reason being, it works on the application layer. It doesn't work at the core level of any application, core level of any operating system. So it can be implemented on a Linux system. It can be implemented on Mac. It can be implemented on Windows or anywhere. And it can HL7 will enable connecting any application to any other application because those applications don't need to understand them each other. They just need to know HL7. And once they know HL7, they will just send the data in the form of HL7 and the other party can receive it because other party can understand HL7. So it will connect any system to any system. HL7 assess access to the overseas market. It's nothing but in case if two different countries want to share medical information or if there are hospitals which are across the seas of similar branches, like there is a hospital Apollo which is in India and also in US, and if they want to have the data has to be shared, then that can be done through HL7 electronically, uh, which will enable large area of network formation. So we might have a question, why do we need a standard? So standard will specifically help all the parties to come on one plane in the who are playing a major role in the hospital workflow. So and that helps sharing of medical data becomes very easy as they don't need to understand anything else apart from HL7. That is the only language they each of those parties who are playing role in the hospital workflow has to understand, and they can just enable their applications to generate HL7 and send each other parties um, reliability, how they are going ahead and consuming that data and decoding it and storing it in their database. And having a common language will give you accessibility to larger set of data. Like you can communicate with any number of people who know HL7. And standards, as I said, here we are talking about standards. So apart from HL7, I said that we will be using X12 to integrate with insurance companies. So that is another type of standard, which is specific to insurance companies and hospitals. So that standard will help them to have quicker claim payments, quicker claim adjustments and all. So interoperability is nothing but the ability for the applications to exchange data or talk to each other or communicate with each other. So we that will standards will enable interoperability without having the need of understanding the architecture of the other systems altogether. And greater safety for the patient because we'll send accurate data and the data is always normal person who doesn't understand HL7 cannot go ahead and read or understand what is going through in HL7. So accreditation is nothing but HL7 standards are always managed and controlled by HL7 organization, which is an international organization which controls the standards and it is always accredited and certified on what has to be used, how the data format should be, how the message structure look like. All of these standards are already released, and at most, as it has some standards, as it has some accreditation, it is always um, it maintains the cream quality which is necessary for uh, skilled transfer of data from one system to another, and obviously the bigger market. So before we look at how HL7 message works, we have seen that. So we will go back to the hospital workflow again. So so if we map back ourselves to the hospital workflow, we have seen that there is some sort of flow which is going through: patient coming in, talking to the receptionist, getting his data captured, and then the data being sent to the EHR system, patient visiting the doctor. So all of this is a flow, okay? And this particular flow is broken down into few events, okay? So let's look at those events here. So patient visits the receptionist, and once he visits the receptionist, he goes to the hospital, and once he goes to the hospital, a receptionist will go ahead and capture that demographic related information and register the patient record. And once registration is done, then they schedule an appointment. Then patient meets the doctor, and once he meets the doctor, if there are any labs that has to be placed, orders that has to be placed, or results that has to be received, that will be done. And post that, if doctor is performing any operation or any diagnosis or anything, whatever, the appointment related fee and the laboratory related fee, everything charges will be sent back to the PM system. And we also have pharmacies and insurances. Once the patient is leaving the hospital facility, they will go ahead and get their medicines from the pharmacy. And once the patient is left, hospital will raise an insurance claim with the insurance company, and they will get their claim settled. So these are broken into different events, as you see here. Okay, registration is one event, appointment scheduling is one event, labs are labs is the third event. Then combining all the charges related to the specific visit is the fourth event. Generating pharmacies and insurances, this is another event. So in this way, hospital workflow has been broken down into different events. Okay. So in this way, it has been broken down into different events. Registration is again broken down into sub events, which we will look at down the line. Okay. So let's look at an anatomy of message. So this is a small example for us to understand very precisely how the structure has been built, how the structure of HL7 has been built. So Kumara or Wali.
Yeah.
So let's look at quick quick example of what we usually do in our daily life. So if it is 7 o'clock in the night or 8 o'clock in the night at home, and we see that the power has gone, what would you do? What is the first thing that you would do?
We'll search for candlelight.
You will search for candlelight, right? So, but you wouldn't be able to see, but how would you be able to reach? How would you know where the candlelight is?
Because it's a permanent place where we keep them.
Exactly, exactly. So there is always a dedicated place in everyone's home where we keep our torch or where we keep our candlelight. We know even if it is dark, we know that you know what, the candlelight is there. We can go there and capture. We can go there, take the candlelight and light it up. In the same way, there is one other dedicated place to keep all our keys. We have our key store where we keep our keys. So even if you wake them up in the night and ask where are the keys, we just say that it's there. So there are few dedicated places within our house or within our facility where we stay that this particular thing has to be there for sure, and we know that it is always there. Okay, HL7 is something pretty the same way, where there are dedicated placeholders for each data that we play with during this hospital workflow, or whenever there is any patient related data or health related data or claim related data, there are placeholders which would say that this particular data element has to be there at one specific location. Okay, so let's
Yeah.
look at one quick example. There is a rack at our house, and in that rack we decide that the first rack will have clothes, second rack will have books, and third rack will have books, something of that sort. And within the first rack is again has different components, where we say that first we'll have t-shirts, and second we'll have trousers, and third compartment will have shirts and all. So now in case if you want to tell someone, say for example you want to tell Wally, where did you keep your t-shirt, you would just say that uh, you can go ahead and get that particular t-shirt from so and so, first rack, first component, right? In case if Wally wants to
Yeah.
say that, because you both know where is, and you both know the locations of where is being stored where, you just go ahead and tell them that first rack, first component, or first rack, second compartment, or first rack, third compartment. Or if they want to search for any books specifically, you say that first rack, second compartment, you can get this book because you both know it.
Yeah.
Okay. HL7 is
Yeah.
similar, very, very similar to that. Okay. So when we look at HL7, it is like, so when we look at HL7 message, it is like you will have many segments which can be compared to the racks, each rack having one separate segment or shelf, I would say, and each segment will have many fields which can be compared to the component compartments, and each field will have again got subdivided into components, and each component will again have subcomponents within it. Okay, this is the structure of an HL7 message. Each message will have segments, and each segment will be again broken down into fields. Fields will have components and subcomponents. So, for us to understand it more easily, for now we will take the smallest unit as field, which is nothing but one compartment. So, within one compartment, the data elements are held. Okay, and each of these compartments, say for example, this is the first compartment as you see here. Uh, this is the first compartment. Okay, this segment is uh, this segment is the first first shelf, and within this first shelf, this field is the first compartment, and this is the second compartment. So, as per HL7 standards, fifth compartment will have the name of any patient. Okay, when I say fifth compartment has to has the name, fifth compartment will always have the name, whatever is the case. It will not change anywhere. Okay, so what we are about to learn is what are the different segments that we have, what are the different fields that we have, and when we go back to the hospital workflow, we see that patient name is captured, patient insurances details are captured, patient age, date of birth, married or not, or his race, ethnicity, all of this information is captured in the front end. And there has to be placeholders within HL7 message which should hold this data, right? So each of the components will hold, one component will hold name, one component will hold whether patient is married or widowed or single, and there will be another component which will component in the sense there will be another compartment which will hold uh, information like email address, phone number, address, etc. So each there will be dedicated fields or compartments, and these compartments are indicated as fields, and each field will hold one specific data type. And we are going to explore what we store where within HL7 message. Okay, are we clear till here? The structure of HL7 message?
Yeah.
Any questions? All right, so within HL7 message, we have few delimiters. Delimiters are nothing but these are the notations, I would say, which we'll use in the HL7 message in order to separate segments, in order to separate fields. So when you see a rack, you have different shelves, right? So how is first shelf is being separated from second shelf? You would say that there is the rack which is separating it. There is a shelf which is separating it, right? And
Yeah.
if there are compartments within that rack, within that first rack, that compartment will be separated with the help of another dividing factor like a slab or something.
Okay, let me ask you. This is gonna be in the system, or are we gonna be doing it by ourselves?
This will be so about the delimiters you are asking.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, these are standard delimiters defined by HL7 organization. And when we construct HL7 message, they will be part of the HL7 architecture.
Okay.
So it is part of the HL7 system to answer your question.
Okay.
Okay. So there needs to be some sort of delimiters which we can use in order to separate segments, in order to separate fields and components and subcomponents, so that we can identify them just by looking at them. So these are the delimiters widely laid down as standards by the HL7 organization. So,
Please make your final selections at this time.
so a segment terminator, which is nothing but which will differentiate one segment with the another, which is called as CR. CR is nothing but a carriage return, which will end one line and start the next line, indicate that it is the end of one specific line or one specific segment. So this is used to separate each segment within HL7 message. And each segment, as we have seen, will have fields. So each field will have a field separator. So those fields has to be separated from each other. So we use pipe as uh, the field separator here. So basically it will separate two fields. And within a field, we will have components, and these components are separated with the help of caret. So this symbol that you see here is called as caret. So we use it between two pipes, which is nothing but for a field to separate two components. So once we look at example, you will be more clear and you would understand them, the notations that we are looking at right now here. So ampersand is used as a subcomponent separator, and tilde, the inverted, I wouldn't say inverted S, it is horizontal S, we can say. A tilde is used to indicate that there is a repetition of similar data type within the field. So say for example, we'll look at the example again in deeper view later, but we'll quickly take a look at one example here. So few hospitals will maintain two different numbers for patients. One is medical record number, which is nothing but the manual number which they have been using so far from ages since the hospital has started. And there will be another number which is system generated. So now the patient is having two patient IDs. One is the medical record number, which is manually assigned, and the second one is the patient ID, which is generated by the system. So these two are patient IDs. Now in HL7, when we look at an HL7 message, there are different placeholders for patient IDs. And if you want to send these two patient IDs within the same field, we'll use a repetition separator to say that we have two different data elements which are of similar kind, which is nothing but they are repeating. Okay. So for that, to indicate to in an HL7 that this is a repetition character, we use a tilde symbol. So we'll look at an example down the line. And an escape character, which is nothing but an escape sequence. So if you quickly, immediately want to, while parsing through the HL7 message, if you want the receiver to skip some word or something, you can use the escape character, and anything soon after that escape sequence will be skipped within the HL7 message. So these are the five major delimiters that we use all across the HL7 message. So here, this is the sample HL7 message, as you can see. The first line indicates one segment, second line indicates one segment, third would indicate another segment, third and fourth are another segment, fifth is another segment. So as you can see, this is an HL7 message where we are seeing that there are few different segments, and each segment is again divided into fields. So if you see here, there are pipes. Okay, and each pipe is holding, and anything which is between these pipes is called as field. This is named as field, and each field will hold one certain data element. Okay, and these fields are separated. This is one field, sorry, this is one field, and this is another field, and this is another field, and each of these fields are separated with the help of pipe, as we can see. And so let's quickly look at one example. So this is a PID segment. So when you look at an HL7 message, each segment will have a name. The first field will always have the name of that specific segment. Okay. So MSH is nothing but message segment header. EVN is nothing but an event. PID is nothing but patient identification. So we'll go through each of these segments and each of these data fields slowly. But for now, for you to understand, it's PID. PID is nothing but patient identification segment. So in this, basically, uh, data related to patient identification is sent. So now we see that after PID, so this is how we read the HL7 message. So we say that PID 1, PID 2, PID 3, PID 4, 5, 6 and all. Okay. So anything that is being between two pipes is indicated as field or is called as field, and this is read as each field is given a numbering system, PID 1, PID 2, PID 3, and so on. So we read it that way. So if you look at this specific example, PID 1 is empty, and you might get a doubt why it is empty. This is I put this as empty wantedly so that we can discuss about it. If there is no data in that particular field, then it has to be sent empty. We cannot say that I will put some other thing here. This particular field is dedicated for set ID. Set ID is nothing but the serial number. But in case if we are sending some blank value, or if you don't have patient ID, or if you don't have any specific information which has to go in one specific field, then we send it black. We don't put some other information there because, as we discussed, I cannot go ahead and put the candle in my house at some other place which is not regular or which is not dedicated for that. That will create problems like if power is gone, I will not go ahead and uh, understand where to search for the candle. In the same way, there is a dedicated field for each data element that we are dealing with, and this dedicated field is used for that specific thing, that specific dedicated data element only, and you cannot send any other data element there. So that is how it is standard and can be understood by the other person. So PID 5 will always have name. If you look at, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, 4 and 5. So PID 5 will always have a name, and within PID 5 we are saying we have few carets. So name can be divided into first name, last name, middle name, or suffix, etc. Right? So again, the name is broken down into four different components. So that is indicated or separated with the help of component separator, which is nothing but a caret. Okay. So if you look back, we have seen that we have each message has segments has fields has components. So we are at this level, we are at the component level of the HL7 message, where we see that PID 5 has name. So this is an HL7 message. Each message has segment, and the third segment in that message is a PID segment, which is nothing but patient identification segment. And within the patient identification segment, the fifth field of that segment indicates the name of a person. So the name of a person has again the name can be broken down into components, which is nothing but first name, last name, and middle initial, etc. So each of those are again entirely name is called as a field, and these first name, last name are again broken down, so they are called as components. So this is first name, this is last name, and those components are separated with the help of caret. And we will look at tilde. We have tilde here, which says that they have two different phone numbers, and it will be confusing right now, but we'll look at that while we go through the entire PID segments architecture or PID segment fields and all. So that is the basic structure of HL7 message.
Okay.
So do you have any questions, Kumara and Wali?
No, no.
Right. So HL7 training and certification, you can once you go through all the training, you can get certified. The main chapters that you have to go through is 2A, 2B, 2C, which will have HL7 conformance and what are the different data types of HL7 and how do we use those in real-time implementations and all. So the certification is always given by HL7 organization. You can enroll for it and you can get certified.
Okay. When are we going to start the training? So
Sorry, Wali?
when are we going to start this training?
There is some sort of disturbance, Wally. What did you say?
What I say is like the training is it we started already or
Yeah, we have started the training.
okay? So we have schedule now.
Yeah, we have scheduled. So daily we will go through a few of the concepts one by one, and we'll continue.
Okay, okay, that's great because I want to get it done so that I can look for a job.
Yeah,
The,
absolutely. So we have started the training, and today is the first session. So as we have another student, we got him joined. So we'll continue. We'll today we have seen the first session uh, till the message structure. From tomorrow on, we'll go through different message structure. What are the uh, fields in each segments? What are the segments we'll have, and different message types. We'll go through them.
Okay. And it's gonna be for how many like weeks we're gonna do it?
4 weeks, 4 to 5 weeks.
4 to 5 weeks. Okay.
Yeah. So we will not have classes on Saturdays and Sundays.
Okay.
We'll
oh,
have
that's great
it
for me.
during the weekdays. Sorry, Kumara.
That's great for me.
Yeah. So we will not have classes on Saturdays and Sundays, but
But I want to ask, are you going to include like a sys because like in America, right? One day you can check Indeed when this thing came out, like all this HL7 job, they always come with CCDA. Whether you know CCDA, are we going to have a little bit about this? Though I've
yeah,
already
we
had a little bit about CCDA, but it's only XML. It's full of XML.
yeah, right. So we will cover basics of CCD. I'll give you an overview of what CCD is. Um, but CCD implementations are totally different altogether. They have different architecture altogether. They have different standards. But in this
Okay.
in this course, we will cover what is CCD, why it has come into picture, how it is used, where it is used. You will get the basics
Okay.
so that you can answer them in your interview.
What about X12?
I can show
Okay.
you the X12 message structure. X12. I can also um,
Okay.
give you an overview why X12 is used, but we will not go deep into how an X12 message is built, how a CCD is built, and all. So that would be another course altogether for CCD and X12.
Okay.
So in this session, we are going mainly for through HL7 and integration using an integration engine, how we generate HL7 messages, how we
Okay.
import HL7 messages.
Okay. You know the see in the, what do we need XML for in the integration the math? Do we need have to know XML or math is going to map the XML with the engine?
Within Mirth, we play with XML. So
Okay.
whenever we extract the data, that data will be converted to XML, and then we apply the transformations, and then we'll convert that back to HL7. So once we go through Merge,
Okay.
we will understand it very nicely. But knowing XML basic, I mean how the XML looks like, what are
Yes,
parent and
I
child
know. I
node,
know. I know basic.
right? So that is
I know.
essential. So we'll go through that.
Okay. Let me see another thing I want to ask.
Okay.
And we have to know a little bit like a SQL, SQL.
Yeah, basics of SQL. I think we have discussed that before. So we just need to know. It's not very much essential for understanding HL7 and applying transformations. All you need to know is HL7 and how the merge integration engine is working and how the transformations can be done. If you want
Yes.
to generate an HL7 message, then you will need to know SQL so that you can extract data from the database and then convert it into HL7
Okay. Okay. Okay.
The daily at what time the classes will be continued?
at the
Same
same
times
time.
or it may vary?
Yeah, same time.
Okay, fine.
Same time. And thanks for reminding. So usually my office is in the afternoon. At times
Okay,
I might have to go early. So in those cases, we will not have session on that specific day.
okay,
Okay, because it is usually scheduled from 7 to 8 my time.
okay.
I
Okay.
might have to go to office at times at 7:30. So we will not have session on that specific day. I will have that informed. I will inform you or Srinivas will get in touch with you guys if I have office. So that will happen once in 2 weeks or once in 3 weeks, or at times it might not happen. So
Okay. What is the duration of the course?
it is 4 weeks. We will have 20 to 25 sessions, and few things depends on how you are working on the exercises that I give.
Okay.
once we start
So
some
I want to ask
practical
another
sessions.
thing. In the integration, like like a bus integration with IBM bus integration. Are we
I
going to do something a little bit about that?
Sorry?
IBM bus integration.
No, I am not aware of IBM BOS integration.
Oh, okay, okay.
Okay, but we will do some practicals like how you build channels and how you apply one or two transformations.
Mm-hmm.
I will give you a couple of exercises
And
so
then we're
that
going to do. So we're going to include ADT and the SIU and
yes,
the LIS.
yes, we'll do that.
Okay, okay. Because that's
Okay.
if I can know all those things and then know all those ones and know how to use math engine, I think I'm going to get a job.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah.
get a
Once this course is done, I think you will have some real-time exposure to the real-time exposure to what is going on, how integrations work, and you can showcase that always to in the interview, uh, and you can get the job.
Yeah, I want you to you gonna after the thing, I want you to help us like do like a mock interview and then we can do like how to build you can do mock interview would be great. I can do resume on my own.
Yep, we can do that, no problem.
Okay. Okay. Sounds
Okay.
good. Sounds good.
All right. So who
Yeah,
can train
Sachin,
in
I have a small doubt.
HL7? Sorry?
I have a small doubt here.
Yeah.
In Merge Connect, will you explain clearly about each and every fact, like filters, transformers, sources, and destinations? Everything will be clear, right?
Yes, we will go through everything.
Oh, okay, fine, fine.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
fine.
Okay.
So we'll go through everything. Filters, transformations, how we apply filters, what are the different logics that we use, everything. We'll cover
Okay.
everything.
And then about the FTP, all this FTP, PPN, whatever, we're gonna go through that.
Yes, we will explain. I'll explain you about FTP, but we will not have an FTP server for a real-time implementation. But I can explain you uh, in the form of TCP/IP or folder structure. Through this, you will understand how FTP works.
Okay. 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 That sounds good.
Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. So who
Mm.
can train in HL7? Basically, anyone who doesn't even know, have any background about hospital industry. If they are willing to learn, they can learn and they can go ahead and get trained in HL7. Um, so basically, to do a full-time integration, you need to know at expert level because we map down back to each and every field of HL7 message. So we need to know at expert level. So guys, I just want to let you know if you want to become champion HL7, you need to memorize each of these things to keep few important fields in mind. You need to know, say that now I say that I know PID 5 is name, PID 7 is date of birth, and PID 3 is patient ID, and so on. So there are few important segments and few important fields which are necessary for you to know as an HL7 implementation engineer. Okay,
Okay.
so get
Okay.
ready to memorize as much you can memorize. So that easy it would be, and it would be helpful for you during when you get on calls with clients. When you are discussing with them, they wouldn't say, "Let's look at the library and figure out where we have what." Most of the discussions will be on the tip of the tongue, like I am sending PI name and PID 5. So where do you want the name to be received, or not name is not a good example. So we'll see that patient discussions will happen in such a way that they will ask where do you want the patient ID, and we say that PID 3 or PID 4 or PID 2. So there are few fields which we need to have them at the tip of the tongue, so you people need to learn it. We will go through what are the required segments and fields once we start looking at segments and all.
Okay.
Okay,
But
so
as an
any question?
HL7 has
Sorry.
a great future, right?
Absolutely,
HL7 has bright.
absolutely. Yeah. Any other questions, Wally,
No, no, no,
Kumar?
no, no question. We're good. So
Okay,
we just have
thank
to
you.
do the schedule right. so that we can finish it on time.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Apart from one thing where I said, um, if I have office, I will not know. So the problem here is I will not know if I am going to have office tomorrow or not until I go today.
Okay.
Okay. So which is why it becomes little difficult at times for me to schedule it beforehand. In case if there is anything of that sort, we will communicate to you whether we are
Okay.
having session tomorrow or the other day or not.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Apart from that, there will be no skipping session in any.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
fine.
All right. Okay.
And Kumaraswamy, when I say Saturdays and Sundays, we follow US calendar.
Oh
So
yeah,
Saturdays and Sundays in the sense Sundays and Mondays for us.
yeah,
Mm-hmm. If you can do like, if we can do like 3 sections in a week, that's gonna be fine. Be able to finish it on time.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
That's all
We'll
the, you know.
no, we'll anyways we'll do 5 sessions in a week. Only the day when I will have office, we might have to skip it. So
Yeah,
okay.
because if we dedicated like this thing, we can do it like in 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
yeah. All right. Let's meet tomorrow then. Tomorrow at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Dixon, are you from
So
India or are you from US?
I'm from India only.
Okay, fine.
Okay. Wally, you're in which time zone?
I'm on
Central?
Eastern.
You're
I
on
know I'm on
Eastern.
Central. Rather, I'm on Central. I live in Dallas.
Dallas, Texas. Okay. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. No problem.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you. Thank you so much.
All
Good
right.
night, Wally.
Good night.